Hey everyone, Mario again, coming at you with another episode of First Impressions, the video series where I discuss films, either ones that are still in their theatrical run or ones I've been meaning to watch for a while. Today it's one of the former. It's a film that came out just a couple nights ago. This is my second attempt at doing this video for it. I did it last night, but I felt I was a little bit out of it and a little bit rambling all over the place. I'm like, I'll just redo it. It, of course, is Stephen King's It, the second adaptation of the novel. I'm going to avoid using the term remake on it because it's not really connected to the miniseries other than the fact that they are adaptations of the same novel. So I'll just say readaptation if I use anything. But if I stumble and use the term remake a couple times, just know I mean it in the sense of it's a readaptation and basically shorthand. Now, this film has been in development for a while. There's been many directors and many screenwriters attached to it throughout the years, and there's been a couple screenplays, mainly that one famous one that's been floating around the internet for a while. I haven't read any of them, but maybe once I watch this film again down the road, maybe I will, just to see what they changed from that draft to the final one. But I must say, I enjoyed the film. It is a lot darker than a miniseries, which is a given. You can get away with a lot more in an R-rated theatrical film than you can in a TV miniseries on network television. Now, there are going to be some minor similarities, but on the whole, they are two different films. Most of their similarities are from adapting the same bits of source material. Now, if I have any major disappointment, it's the fact that we don't have the Macroverse in the film as a fully shown concept. No Pennywise turning into his true form. No wide universe that he sends Bill to during their fight. No Maturin the Turtle, one of the Beam Guardians and its arch enemy. There's little hints with turtle symbolism throughout the film, so he might show up in the sequel, and if not, they just throw that in there just to have a little subtle presence of Maturin. Which is I guess better than nothing, but still, I was looking forward to it, but it is what it is. If it shows up in the sequel, they'll make up a little bit. If not, they better have a good way to actually show it. No Ritual of Chud either, which, for those of you who didn't read the novel, that is a battle of wills, and in both fights with it, it's fought between Bill and it, and it injures him, because it's basically the will and the power of the Seven Losers Club through Bill versus it, and of course, they also have a little bit of the Turtles' advice, and of course, Gon, the spirit of the Dark Tower, working through them, but that's more a subtle thing that the children don't realize, but it senses slightly, or at least thinks it senses. Now, plot-wise, it's about the same as the miniseries part that focuses on the children. The only difference is there's no flashbacks like in the novel, and in the miniseries it starts right when they're children and goes all the way through. So you manage to work in a few more elements of their childhood than you could in the miniseries because of the constant flashing back and forth. Now, at the same time, some of the things are different, like one of them is connected to the character of Ben, and that is, he's not shown to be an architect. And in fact, they actually give Mike's historical character trait to Ben since he's a new kid in town. And they turn Mike into a farmer's kid. Or in the case of the story, they went with his grandkid. So, another reason for him to stay in the city after they become adults. But I don't see him becoming a librarian now. Which makes me wonder, are they going to make Ben an architect in the next one? Just a little amusing there. It makes me wonder why they decided to do that, but hey, maybe it was one of the things that happened in between the mini drafts, and they're like, hey, let's make the fat kid the historical buff. I don't know. All the others are pretty much the same, except Bill doesn't really have any writing inclinations, but then again, he's still mourning the death of his brother, so you're not really going to write a lot when you're doing that and you're trying to find the body. That's one thing they changed, is that Georgie's body vanishes. And so I thought that was a little interesting change. Gives Bill an obsession other than wanting to see the person who killed his brother brought to justice, or since it's it killed. Eddie and Richie are the same for the most part. You know, Eddie, still the mama's boy whose mother's very overprotective of him, doesn't want him to go and do anything dangerous, smothers him once he breaks his arm. It's broken differently in the film, by the way, but he still breaks it. Wants to cut off all contact. And of course, the inhaler that's a placebo. And Richie, of course, is the jokester guy with all the one-liners. He definitely says more one-liners here than in the miniseries, as we see in the trailer. Does not smell like caca to me, senor. And he has more. He's the one that drops the most F-bombs, too, which a few of them seem forced, but they did curse in the novel, so I gave him a little leeway on that. And, of course, he's played by one of the kids from Stranger Things. Though in Stranger Things, he plays the character that kind of be the Bill Denbrough stand-in. But in this one, he's more one of the side characters, which he does a good job. It's interesting to see him go from a type of build-like character to playing Richie. It does show a little bit of his range, which, as a side thing, all the kid actors do a great job playing their characters. If there's any weak link, it's the one that plays Mike, but I'd say that's more from the writing standpoint, from the acting standpoint, because he hardly has anything to work with, so it's not like he's going to stand out here, but the actor still does what he can. Beverly, they took the whole aspect of her father being overprotective and sprinkled a little hot sauce on it. Or should I say a lot of hot sauce, because not only is he overprotective, but throughout the film they hint that he is a pedophile. Now, with the first scene I saw, I'm like, ooh, they're going at this angle, because the way the first scene that he's in this film, you can tell he's overprotective, but just something about the camera angles and some of the dialogue, and also the acting by the actor that plays her dad, you're like, okay, this is uncomfortable. And then you could even see in Bev's face that she's uncomfortable, and she even cuts her hair afterwards. Because she has long hair the first couple scenes we see her, then she cuts it short after he, touches it and says he likes it, so you can tell from that, it's like, okay, if he's not abusing her, if he hasn't gone over the line to become like Joe St. George from Dolores Claiborne, he's thinking about it, because she's getting to be in that point in her life where she's changing. I mean, in one scene she's even buying tampons in the store, so you can tell it's going to go there, and near the end of the film he even attempts it, so they do kind of work in a version of that scene from the novel where he wants to check and see if she's intact, which he does that at Pennywise's prodding, but I guess you could say that he attempts it, what he does in this film, at Pennywise's prodding too. And on the same token, whereas in the novel, Bev doesn't seem to be bullied a lot by the other girls. They just ignore her because they think she's white trash because she's lower middle class, lower class. Whereas here, they actively bully her. I mean, we see a scene where they throw trash on her in the stall because they could smell her smoking and other stuff. And there's even rumors about her sleeping with every guy in the school. So it's like, ew. Yeah, these bullies. Yeah, bullies could be bad, which I know some might say that King writes his bullies a little over the top, which he does in a way, but they still come off as semi-realistic, especially Bowers, because Bowers is doing it because his dad bullies him, so it's that whole archetype of you're going to take out your frustrations on someone weaker than yourself. Now, the miniseries never gives that across, but the novel does, and his dad is abusive like in the novel, it's just they have different professions. In the novel, he's a farmer, here he's the sheriff, or I'm assuming he's the sheriff. He could just be a normal police officer who just takes out his frustrations on his son, but he's there. I mean, there's one scene that even shows the power difference where, his son really backs down and he looks at his friend and says, see? Basically saying he's a paper tiger. And, of course, Bowers, they got him across well for the most part. He's not like a greaser like how he is in the original novel and in the miniseries, or that's how he comes off anyway. He's like, hey, he's not like the Fonzie type greaser, like, hey, losers! He's like a mean greaser, like, I'm gonna cut you. Here, it seems more like a normal-esque kid bully from the 80s, but with one of his friends, they really had to nail home it's the 80s, because they always had him wearing different shirts. Like one scene he's wearing an Anthrax shirt, the other scene he's wearing a Metallica Metal Up Your Ass shirt, which I thought was a nice touch, but I know it's only one of his friends wears them, but they even gave Bowers the mullet, which I thought was funny. Like, yeah, that's nice. The only thing with Bowers, I'm not going to mention it fully, is that what happens to him near the end of his scenes is like, how the hell are they going to work him into the sequel to have Pennywise try to get him to kill the losers again? I guess Pennywise could have interfered at the last moment or whatnot, but it's just one of those weird little things. I'm thinking, okay, he ain't going to be in Rush Hour 3. Now, of course, we come to Pennywise himself. I thought Skarsgård did a pretty good job acting-wise. Now, his performance is definitely different than Tim Curry's. Tim Curry's, his is a little bit more energetic and a little bit more over the top. But he does have his dark moments, like in the sewer. Go ahead, be afraid. He's dark and energetic. Then other scenes, he's really campy-ish, I would say. Like, excuse me, sir, do you have Prince Albert in a can? And other stuff like that. But, you know, he's playing a clown, he's having fun with it, and you could see him switching like that. Now, Skarsgård, he does have his moments where he is energetic, and he's doing the same thing, trying to scare the crap out of them, but it's in a slightly different way. And most of them are in the scenes where he's with the losers by themselves, so it changes his dynamic a little bit. Just on the same token, most of the scenes where the losers just see him independently, like what we see pictures of, he's trying to scare the crap out of them. As Pennywise words it in the novel, he's salting the meat. So him doing those scary faces just to scare the crap out of them makes sense in context. Now, they probably shouldn't have used those ones as the marketing, but you know, it's like, damn it, we gotta sell this film based on Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Show us the scariness, damn it. Now, his first scene with Georgie comes straight out of the novel. Now, it is a little different than how Tim Curry did it. Like, there seems to be a little awkwardness with Skarsgård, but considering that he comes off as like he's trying to keep his hunger at bay during it, it made a little sense to me. I mean, that's not how I would have had the scene directed, but it's an interesting take on the scene where you can actually see a little drool. And based on how they did the teeth for the makeup, it seems a little rat-like or animal-like, and you can tell he's trying to hold it. And it adds to the awkwardness of him trying to get the kid to come closer. But then I guess you could say that even though he's been feeding on humans for centuries, if not longer, he does not fully understand human interaction. He can interact, but he still has that social awkwardness. Now, there are some jump scares when Pennywise is trying to scare the crap out of them, which, when I heard that from initial reviews, I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. But having watched it, they didn't annoy me. A lot of them made sense. Now, you could say they probably did a few too many, but since most of them are when he's either alone trying to scare the crap out of him, like when Ben's in the library, or when they go into the house on Neibolt Street, it would make sense that... and one of them, of course, is the infamous clown room that we heard about, where we get the cameo of a doll dressed like Pennywise from the miniseries, which was a nice little tribute. And, of course, this is his first scene where Skarsgård starts to go energetic creepy. Because that's the thing, he doesn't scare me, because I've never been scared of clowns, but he is a little creepy. And, of course, the clown makeup they went with is that old school one that kind of looks like a porcelain doll clown. It made sense to me, with how long Pennywise has been around, that that's what he would go with. And of course, like I said, he looks intentionally creepy, but in the first scene we see him with, he doesn't seem as creepy because he's actually trying to smile at him. I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown. Other than his clown form, the only form from the novel they used was the leper, which they really used CGI on that, which is like, they could have just done that practically to get their point across, which is like, they're going to have to CGI it. Other than that, it's new forms like Stan's afraid of this weird-looking painting in his father's office. They made his father a rabbi here, so they really did play up the fact he's a Jewish kid. But in the novel, I don't remember if they ever mentioned what his dad's profession is, so maybe it's just they're just elaborating. Which Stan, by the way, I haven't mentioned him yet. He's more or less about the same as he is in the novel. The only difference is he doesn't seem like he wants to cut his wrist when they do the oath near the end. I'll just see how he comes off in the sequel, because that's where most of his bread and butter comes from. Other than him being scared to actually face it again, which they got that across a couple times in the movie, so when it happens in the sequel, it'll make a lot more sense. Of course, the room filled with clowns. They made clowns of Richie's fear. Of course, taking Georgie's form. That's also from the novel a little bit, and also was used in the miniseries. You sent me out and it killed me, Bill. Of course, goes with Bill having to face Pennywise. In the end, since they didn't bring in the Macroverse, it was just a big scene where the losers are fighting off it with weapons. One of them even has a bat. Which, it's an interesting take on it if you're not going to use the Macroverse and you're not going to bring in the whole Silver Slug thing, which... on one hand, I'm happy they did that because it allows their confrontation with Pennywise to stand on its own. And two, it comes off a little bit better because even though I like the fact that they used the Silver Slug thing in the miniseries, the way it came off was a little weird, because then Bill's all of a sudden just like, Silver could kill it. Just like, I trust you, Big Bill, but where are you coming by this knowledge? I mean, I guess you could say that it's their faith in the Silver that allows them to hurt Pennywise, but in the novel it made more sense since they used it in the house on Neibolt Street and not their final confrontation. And it only hurts Pennywise because of their faith in it, and also the fact that he has to abide by the rules of whatever form he takes, and he takes the form of a werewolf. So, Silver, it's going to hurt him. So they basically just took that and put it into their final confrontation with Pennywise's kids, and while it works, it does come off as awkward in the beginning, so it's like, Could be like, they could have added a couple words of dialogue, but I'll get to that when I do my more talks on the miniseries. Now here they just beat the crap out of him, and there's nothing really about Faith said, each subtext. The closest is when Bill mentions that they're not afraid of him anymore, and that he's getting hungry. So you could say that that's what it is. It's their faith and their unity that really hurts Pennywise. I mean, the physical blows are going to do a little bit of damage to his current physical form, but he'll heal. But it's more their unity and their lack of fear that is really hurting him. It's kind of like the Ritual of Chud, where it's a battle of wills. This is the closest we get to it. So I guess you say them beating him up and they're standing up against him is the movie's Ritual of Chud. And Pennywise is like, oh, no. I have a movie quote that sums it up perfectly, in my opinion. It's from Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's said by Nancy. I take back every bit of energy I gave you. You're nothing. You're shit. And essentially the same thing happens. I mean, it's not like Freddy where he just vanishes into her, but basically, that's what happens. Pennywise just leaves. We know he'll be back. I mean, even Bev mentioned seeing a vision. The only other thing is that there's no deadlights in the scene other than one quick cameo, and they don't even call them that. So that's why I'm a little worried about how they'll bring the Macroverse in the sequel, but who knows, they'll get to it. Maybe they'll have Bev mention something about it when they are remembering, and they're like, what was it? They're like, deadlights. Deadlights, that's what it is. Then hopefully bring it in. But I thought the usage was good, though they didn't use his eyes, which is like, okay, doing it a little differently. On a side note, I did like during the fight that they actually did hint at Pennywise's true form. If you've only seen the miniseries, it is a spider, but it's a lot more complicated. I've already done a review of the novel, so depending on which order I decide to upload the videos in, either you can go back and watch it, or stay tuned for the video after this. The direction, I thought, was pretty good. He got good performances out of his actors, even the side ones, which, on a side note, they don't really touch on the fact that why the adults can't see, like, the blood or the balloons or anything, but that's something they'll probably bring up in the sequel. But in having read the novel, I understand why, but for those of you who don't know, it's because it won't let them. So we'll see if they bring that up in the sequel. All the adults did pretty good jobs. The kids, like I've already mentioned, did excellent jobs. Thankfully, they did not adapt that infamous scene from the novel, though there's kind of a few hints about it. I mean, Bev kisses both Ben and Bill throughout the film. Ben's kiss is to kind of snap her out of something, and that's also how she figures out that Ben is the one that wrote the poem. And she kisses Bill at the end, so I know a few people are going to be like, oh no, why him? Just remember, Ben gets the last laugh in the end. And of course, the kids, when they're doing the little scene at the watering hole, they all are noticing Bev. That's the closest it gets, and it's done tastefully. Even though that scene in the novel is written in a semi-tasteful manner, you really didn't need to do it in the film, so I'm glad they cut that out. The cinematography, I thought, was pretty good. It really did show the dark tone of the film. The lighting for it was excellent. Close-ups, wide shots, all the above. If there's any weak point with the cinematography, is that certain parts of the effects you can really see they're stretching the budget, because this was made for about $35 million, which now is like a mid-low size budget. But they did with what they had. They did with what they had. They did what they could. Most of the effects are pretty good. It's just there's a couple moments where it's starting to become a little noticeable. It's like, yeah, starting to look a little fake there. They stretched it. Maybe when it hits video, they might fix it a little bit. And that's part of the reason I think they should have done practical with the leper, but I'm just beating that horse dead right now. Stop it! He's already dead. On the whole, it's a film I enjoyed. I know it's a little soon. I don't like giving ratings and first impressions, but when me and Jeff were talking, I gave it about a 4 out of 5. He gave it the equivalent in his rating scale, an 8 out of 10. We were both in agreement that we enjoyed it. We probably should have done our first impressions video like we did with John Wick, but you know, we didn't think of it, but we both enjoyed it. And one thing I will say is that there were a lot of teenagers at that Edwards Cinema to see this film. Here's the reason why. Because the first showing we were going to go to was a 7 o'clock one. It was sold out before we got there. We're standing in line to get tickets for the 8:30 one. Sells out before we even get to the front of the line. So it's like 9. Even if the 9 o'clock one sold out, we still had 9:15. So it's like, stay there. Good, we both got 9. And I'm sure the next couple ones sold out like that. And it's just, when we got into the theater, we actually had to sit in the very front because all the other 2 seats were either taken or being waited on. So I was like, oh, damn it. And of course, I was wearing my Pennywise shirt, and I saw a couple people wearing it throughout the rest of it. So it's like, Pennywise for life. So as you can tell, this film does come with my recommendation. If you're on the fence, you can either see it now or wait for DVD, but you definitely should watch it. It is different enough from the miniseries that it stands on its own. And if you've read the book, you'll probably like it, but you'll also have some of the little nitpicks like I did. But you should enjoy it. I know from what I've heard that Stephen King liked it, and having watched it, I could definitely say that I think this is an instance where he actually did enjoy it, and not one where he's just saying it under contract obligations not to trash anything. And I am looking forward to part 2, but like Jeff joked when I mentioned that this film came out 27 years after the miniseries, which is an ironic coincidence, I feel. He's like, does that mean we're going to have to wait 27 years for the part 2? I hope not. I hope it's like 1 to 2 years that we have to wait, because that's the perfect amount of time to let, the film's legacy slowly build. I mean, the hype cool down a little bit, and then build it back up with a sequel. And I like that they didn't say Chapter 1 until they showed it at the end. That was a good way to actually nail home that this is only a Part 1.